This will be my presentation of the PLC PD, the Professional Learning PD for our campus as we come back from summer. I have still yet to figure out the camera situation on either one of my laptops, either my school-issued laptop or my personal laptop, and so with screencast device. So this will just be the audio. Please let me know if that's going to be an issue, but today we are going to be talking about creating a culture of collective responsibility for our entire campus and building our why as we improve our student learning objectives, our student outcomes, and we just grow in general as a campus. So I want to put up today's learning outcomes. After day one, the teachers at our campus should be able to define what a true PLC is, especially as it compares to your more traditional PLC or just staff meeting in general. We want to shift the focus from our teams meeting and essentially wasting our time while we're meeting and defining what a true PLC is, which is distinguishing those real professional learning communities from your traditional teams. The second thing is, in our PLCs, to practice these true PLCs, we want to explain Dufour's 4 questions and then connect each one of those questions to our campus practices and student learning. Thirdly, we'd like to be able to describe our role in this collective responsibility for our campus and then commit to the new campus vision as we look to grow. So that's what we're learning. I just want to welcome everybody back from their summer. Hopefully everybody had a good summer. As we commit to growth on our campus, I want us to focus on this quote here that no matter how talented each one teacher is, one classroom cannot change the entire campus. The school improves when the adults learn together. So while this is most practically done within the team that you're working with, so across grade levels, math with math, social studies, and so forth, if we can all take responsibility for the students in our building across content areas and across grade levels, then the school as a whole can grow, and when the adults elevate their best practices, we can then all get better. And so it's not just math looking out for math and reading for reading, but reading looking for math and vice versa. Whether this is your first year or your 20th, every one of us has a real opportunity to make a lasting impact and to grow. So this year we want to focus on real PLCs and what those look like as they're modeled by our entire staff. So what we're going to do is start with a little icebreaker game where we go around and everyone's been given a Find Someone Who bingo card where there's going to be different topics on there. You'll find the person that corresponds with that topic and you will, or that can answer that for you, like someone who knows 2 languages or has traveled to this country. Those will be on there, and so this will get you up and moving and talking to people that you haven't talked to before. And then when we get back, we kind of want to discuss with our table groups, what did you learn about your colleagues that you didn't know, and then we'll have one person present some of those findings. And so this will be a fun way for everybody to just get out of their comfort shell and meet some people you haven't met before. Okay, at the conclusion of that, when that's all done, we want to move on to our campus vision and our core beliefs. So as we refine from what we improved on last year, we want to acknowledge that our school is changing and that there with change becomes, it can make some people uncomfortable, but we want to focus on our mission. And then my focus for this year is that we would adopt the same team mentality. We'll be reviewing a video later in these PDs that sort of highlights that, but it is not me against you or outperforming or anything like. I want us all to believe that we're all rowing the boat forward, and I need us to return back to that same mantra of same team as we get into the year and things become difficult and staff members clash, students start acting out. We have to remember that we're all on the same team and we're all working towards the same goals. Well, what are those goals? Our mission for our campus is to ensure high levels of learning for every student by fostering a collective culture where educators continuously improve and take collective responsibility. Now notice I didn't say teachers in their specific grade level and content area. No, it's at educators as a whole, so that's our entire campus collectively taking responsibility and continuously looking to improve. Our vision is that every teacher is a learner and every student is challenged. Every decision is driven by what's best for that student. So again, growth mindset, we just want to make sure that we're all focusing on growing teachers alike. Our core beliefs. We are committing to these, and if we keep them at the forefront of our mind, we'll have a really successful year. The first core belief is that every student can learn. So there shouldn't be any student left behind, but that doesn't mean that we just pull them across the finish line, but that we figure out the way that they can learn best so that we can meet them where they are with quality instruction and meaningful relationships. Learning is our purpose. While teaching is important, we do want to teach, but we can't just teach. We need to make sure that learning is our measure of success, not just getting through the content. Collaboration amongst our peers produces better results. No one teacher should work in isolation. Your team should be cohesive and working towards one common goal and using common language. Every adult is responsible for every student. So I've touched on this already. Success doesn't just belong to one classroom. It belongs to all the classrooms alike, and we're all celebrating in each other's success and working to try to get better as we look across the hallway, down the hallway, in creating one unified team where every student is our responsibility. And then we win together. When one teacher wins, the rest of us win. When we have success, we all succeed. So it's in these celebrations of success that we create the same team mentality. So, what is a real PLC? I put the emphasis on real because I think that PLC as just a meeting time without a real defined what we're supposed to do in this meeting can oftentimes turn into a traditional team meeting that is frankly just a big waste of time. It focuses on what you're teaching. It focuses on the lesson plans for which you're teaching. It is a complaint area for students and other teachers and other departments and what they're doing, and then ultimately everybody just shares and then works independently anyways, whereas a PLC is a shared commitment to student learning that continues to improve and has that collective responsibility. So shifts your mindset from the traditional collaboration to a true PLC where it's driven by data and focused on results as well. So a traditional team is just focused on the teaching. They're ultimately working independently, and then really what it turns into and what I would like to stop doing is going back to our vision or our core value of every student can learn. If we just use this time as a complaint session of complaining about our students and how they're not learning and how we're not reaching them, and we just kind of spin our tires, then we're not really moving forward at all. So we want to shift our mindset to the real professional learning community, which focuses on the learning, not the teaching. It uses student data to collect information, not just lesson plans and different lessons that you've gone through. We solve problems together instead of just working independently. So sharing things that are working, not working, come up with creative ideas, and then, does that collaborating intentionally. And then if you are complaining about a student, we shift our mindset from just venting and complaining to, I have this situation, here's how the student is acting, what would you do to solve this problem? And then that fits into that collaborating intentionally. Now the table activity, I'm going to pass out some scenario cards, and you have to defend your reasoning on if that scenario would constitute a real PLC, or if that's something that would just be a waste of time in our professional learning community time periods. So at the conclusion of that table event, we would be looking at Richard Dufour's 4 essential questions. So I think what really can help us hone in what a real professional development, real PLC is compared to just a traditional staff meeting would be answering these 4 questions, and this is how we incorporate collaboration as well. The first one that we want to start out with is our main goal. What do we want students to learn? Now, we can define these by the TEKS that are provided to us and the learning targets for every student, but we want to make sure that those fit our students as well, as long as fitting the TEKS that we are looking for. So we want to start with that question. What do we want our students to learn? But we can't just stop there, because if we say, what do we want students to learn, we define that, and then we come up with an activity to reach that goal, we then have to think on our feet and figure out, well, what if these different scenarios come up? How will we know that they've learned it? Is this a formative assessment? Is it summative assessment? Are we doing traditional tests, pop quizzes, presentations? We want to discuss with our team how we feel like we would best know what they've learned, based on the goal that we have of what we want them to learn. How will we know that they've learned it? Well, then, if we're going through our lesson, what do we do at the end when we realize that we haven't? So we want to be able to provide a realistic timeline with systematic redefinitions and interventions of our lesson if we're realizing that our students are not getting there. We don't want to just go back and reteach it, because if they didn't get it the first time, there's a pretty good chance that it's the way we're teaching it, which is why they haven't gotten it yet. So we want to collaborate with our team to figure out, did they reach the same timelines that you were, that everyone had set the goal to do or to reach? And then did their students miss it? If they didn't, why didn't they? And then discussing that. But I feel like the harder question to answer is, what do we do if the students already know the information? So if we have discussed a timeline, we're working within that timeline to meet the goal of what do we want students to learn, and we figured out how we will know that they've learned it. If we're getting into the content and we realize that these students already know this information, or they're getting it quicker, well, then we can't just rely on free time for the student in that moment, because we need to be intentional with our instruction, bell to bell, and just utilizing every time. And so how can we, working as a team to collaborate, enrich and redefine the content for which we're teaching, so that we're not just leaving the students that, well, you learned it, so now it's free time, or we can take a break. And then we want to make sure that students are learning all the time and growing. If growth is the mindset, growth is the goal, then we need to be able to know how we're going to do that if they already know it. Okay. Traditional mindsets from my student to our student. We've touched on this a little bit, but math cannot just be responsible for math. It needs to be responsible for math, but it also can take a moment to say, I want every student on this campus to grow as a learner, not just in math, but as a learner in general. So that traditional mindset would tell you, well, I've taught my lesson. If students didn't learn it, then they just didn't do their part. Well, what if we switch that mindset to, all of our students are all of our responsibility. If they didn't learn it, then we need to work together to figure out how we can help. So an example of this might be, I taught my lesson. If students didn't learn it, they just didn't do their part. Well, if you are a math teacher introducing word problems and the student isn't understanding because they don't have a firm grasp of how to interpret that information, because it's now in a written assignment or a written question versus a just traditional numbers question, then how can the English teacher take responsibility or RLA teacher take responsibility and say, well, we haven't as a campus enriched the student enough, we have not taught the student enough, and we need to take responsibility where if they didn't learn it, we work together to figure out how to help. Math teachers, the same. If they haven't taught a specific subject well enough, then it may affect them in other content areas. And so we have that collective responsibility, meaning that we share the accountability for every student, not just the ones on our roster, but every student as a campus. We need to be bringing up good learners that can go forth and learn for the rest of their lives and also contribute to our society. Okay, so we need to build on our campus commitments. So there are posted chart papers up around the room. I'll have groups rotate every 5 minutes, adding their ideas to the sticky notes, and then your responses will be shared for our PLC norms. But the questions that we want answered in the mindset of how will we do our best PLCs are, what commitments should every teacher make in their PLCs? Follow-up question, what behaviors build trust and accountability among colleagues? How do we want students to describe our school? Follow-up question, what culture are we creating? What does it look like in action? And then what does a high-performing team actually look like? Some ideas could be respect, preparation, shared leadership, productive, conflict, and accountability. And so, as you walk around the room and you put your sticky notes, no bad ideas on there. We'll collect some of those ideas, and that will help us to define really what our PLCs need to look like throughout the year. And so I'd appreciate your responses on that. Okay, as we come to a close on day one, which there will be a lot more information in the actual presentation, but some individual reflections that I'd like for you to do in your journals would be, what changed my thinking today, specifically when it comes to PLCs? What's one thing I need to change in my own practice, and how will PLCs help our students? After you have reflected about those on your own, in your own reflection journals, then we can, I'll pass out index cards for you to do your exit tickets on. And before you leave, I want to know that one thing that you learned about PLCs, one question that you still have, and one commitment that you will make. And these tickets will help guide our day 2 instruction as we go into day 2 and continue to discuss PLCs. There are a lot of things involved in this whole 3-day PD of the professional development regarding PLCs, and there are a lot of details that we'll go over when we're doing the actual presentation of the PD. But here's sort of a roadmap of where we'll be for the next 3 days. Day 1, we were just building our why, so we were figuring out how we can switch from collaborative responsibility for the entire campus and move away from the mindset of I'm just responsible for the students that are on my roster and I want to work independently. How can I create more collaboration on my team? Day 2, we'll take that collaboration and see how we can move to collective action, so what these PLCs will look like in actuality. And then day 3, from learning together to leading together, we'll see again how these actually look, real life PLCs, what they would and how they would benefit our campus. And we'll do some activities on with your actual team members where we can sort of get the foundation for our PLCs, establish roles and responsibilities in those PLCs so that we can have success. We'll also nail out how often we feel like the team needs to meet for these professional learning communities, and then set up the actual dates for those as well. So I want to leave you with this: the professional learning communities, the PLCs, are not just meetings, programs, or initiatives. They represent a commitment to one another and to every student who walks through our door. The bottom line is, if we can adopt the same team mentality across for our school, meaning that the students are on our team, the teachers are on our team, the admins on our team, counselors, librarians, everybody is on the same team. We all just have different roles as we contribute to the success or the failure of that team. And so if we can reset when emotions are high, when students aren't acting like we want them to, when their learning isn't exactly how we wanted it to, the outcome that we wanted, if we can say, okay, I need to take a breath, we're all on the same team, how can I then contribute to the success of my team members so that we get the outcome of a win? And everybody wants, because everybody on the team wants a win. Nobody on the team wants the team to lose, unless they're extremely hurt, and we should never get there, because the collaboration that we have on our team makes it to where we all want to row the boat forward. No one's wanting to row against it, because we all have the same goal in mind and we all care for each other. There's the foundation of care. Hard moments and hard things are going to happen in there, but we know that with that foundation of care, with the same team mentality, we can come together, reset, and continue to row forward to the goal that we all want, which is campus success and campus growth. And our success won't be determined just by the plans that we create or the conversations that we have. We want to ensure that our success looks like high levels of learning for every student, and that we are committing that every student become a good, active learner and can contribute to our society. So we'll continue to go through this. We'll have more discussions and activities around the things that we'll do that will help us with our PLCs. I'm going to switch screens here. I have a complete 3-day guide to our agenda on what we're going to do that has all the times spelled out of everything that we're going to discuss, the materials that we'll need, some opening statements. I'll also have what's most important to me is in my reflection time period after each day, those will shape what the next day looks like, because everybody needs to grow, myself included, and so I have a rough outline of what days 2 and 3 will look like for our professional learning communities and the professional development around those, but the questions and the collaboration that you guys have as we move into days 2 and 3 will help me refine those things to make sure that we're not wasting any time. I'll review your exit tickets, adjust day 2 as needed, and then compile those into a draft for the PLC norms that we'll establish on day 2. I did want to, probably my favorite part of this entire PLC PD are the PLC norms, which these are just going to be best practices that your team is going to come up with, and I came up with some examples of what a PLC team norm would look like. Feel free to use these, just help them, define them, what they look like for your own team, or you can deviate from these and come up with something that works best for your team. But sort of with the same team mentality, if we can simplify our language to our common goals, I feel like that helps us refocus when things get hard. And so I want to start with the gate that the goal of our PLC is student first. I think that this shifts our mindset from just complaining about our students to thinking, okay, our students have weaknesses and they have strengths. How can we put every student first? So we need to discuss and make decisions based on what is best for that student's learning, so that we can keep moving forward. So we want to keep our conversations focused on just the student learning rather than personal preferences or complaining about the students, and then base our decision on evidence rather than just opinions. That kid, he's never going to learn. Well, let's look at the data and figure out where their weaknesses are and make decisions from there. Number 2, our norm would be to be present and engaged. I think that every meeting, PDs included, go well when people are on time, they're off their phones or their email, and then they actually participate in these discussions. I mean, this works best in your classroom. It works best for PD. We know that engagement and participating in the lesson in these meetings is going to help everybody. Okay, thirdly, same team mentality, assume positive intent. So we must trust that everybody is there to improve our teaching and improve our learning. We're not calling anybody out, we're calling people up, okay? So there are ways that we can position our phrasing to edify those people around us and not just call them out. And that's going to take some patience and some practice, but ultimately the responsibility of the receiver of those things is to interpret, okay, I'm going to assume positive intent by what this teacher is bringing to me right now. They're not just trying to insult my teaching strategy or what I'm doing, but we are all trying to be student first and we're all on the same team. So listen before responding, ask some clarifying questions, watch tones, respect different perspectives, and focus on solutions, not blame. We've touched on this a couple times, but we got to be using data to drive our decisions. Analytics they're void of opinion, and so when we can look at the data and figure out where our weaknesses are, we don't have to rely on biased fact and emotions. We can just analyze the data and move from there. Finally, our 5th norm is leave with action. So we don't want to leave any PLC without any action steps. Otherwise, we just sat in a meeting and we just talked. And so we want to assign responsibilities, set deadlines, keep everybody focused on we need to leave this meeting with action steps. So what are those? Okay, that's going to pretty well conclude the discussion that I'd like to do today for this video. The outline that I'm sending for the 3 days, I made it detailed enough to where, like you said, if I get promoted to superintendent one day, I can hand this off to the incoming principal and they'd be able to take it, including quotes and objectives and how some of the activities work. I think that people are only going to participate really well if they're having fun, and so I would also be including in this lots of videos and breaks and fun activities. I've included a couple of breaks where there's fun little icebreaker questions in there, and then also a break for any of the introverts in the room, leading questions during the break to get people talking if they would like, but this could also be a quiet break for our introverts, and we thank them for making their social sacrifice. What's a core memory you made this summer? What name would not make your final list of baby names because of a former student? And so, I just thought those were little funny questions, and so trying to keep them engaged as possible, and trying to keep it as fun. We want to make sure that these PDs are basically a glimpse into what works in the classroom, and so you would want to make sure that you're keeping your audience engaged just like you would students. So lots of up and moving and good learning. Okay, I've spoken enough. This is the end of my presentation. Please let me know if there's anything you'd like for me to improve on.